Welcome to Living the Thrilling Life. In previous episodes, we've talked for 3 minutes or less on how not to be overwhelmed reading the Bible. This week, I'm going to break it down a little bit further for you. After all, I can't effectively cover nearly 2,000 pages and 66 books in just 3 minutes. This week, I'm going to show you how to make the pages of the Bible come to life and speak to you personally. But first, I want to give a shout out to Life Network for Women. Thank you for streaming me on your network. And for the rest of you out there, if you want to subscribe to my channel, please click below so you can know about my upcoming episodes. I'm Victorya Rogers. I'll be right back. When I encourage people to read the Bible, often people will flippantly tell me, "Oh, I've read it before," or "I didn't like it," or "I didn't believe it." But when I ask a few more questions, I find out that they really didn't read it for themselves. They just skimmed it or heard a verse or two or remember some of the Bible stories from childhood. For those of you trying to figure out if God is real, seeking for hope in your circumstances, or want to know if the Bible really is true, I begin this episode with a 30-day challenge just for you. For the next 30 days, I want you to be giving the Bible a chance. Begin with an open mind. Carve out a specific time each day to read, whether you're going to do 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. Commit to a certain amount of time. And then I want you to start with a prayer, asking God this very question. Okay, God, if you are real, and if Jesus really came down to earth for me personally, prove it to me. Open my eyes as I read the pages. That's it. Just simple, open-minded request that God reveal himself to you as you read his book. I want you to begin in the book of John. It's the fourth book of the New Testament. Okay, you've got the Old Testament and the New Testament. 2/3 of the way through begins the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I want you to start in John. And as you continue reading each day for this specific amount of time you've committed to, finish the book of John and then jump back to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. As I mentioned, those are the 4 Gospels that are first-hand accounts of the four men who were personal friends of Jesus while he was alive on earth. That's where you're going to get his full story of Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. Now remember, each day as you read, I want you to begin by asking God that question over and over again each day. God, if you're real, show me and help me understand what I read. Now, if your month is not up yet and you've finished reading the 4 Gospels, then keep on reading straight through the rest of the New Testament. And if you are that ambitious and get through the entire New Testament in that 30 days, then jump on back to the very beginning of the book, to the Old Testament, which is Genesis. I promise every single one of you listening to me today, I promise every single one of you listening to me today, that if you take that 30-day challenge and authentically ask God to reveal himself to you as you read those pages, that he will show up. God will open your eyes and you will begin to understand his word. When we say his word, that's another word for me saying the Bible. And I will tell you, after you've taken that challenge, I would sure love to hear from you and hear what happened as you read the book for yourself. Okay, well, that's my 30 days challenge. Now let me give you some insights to more of this amazing 2,000-page book that is very old. In fact, well over 2,000 years old. What I want you to know, well, basically, the Bible is a collection of 66 books written by numerous people who had first-hand encounters with the living, personal God. It's split into 2 parts. There's 39 books in the Old Testament and 27 books in the New Testament. Now, the Old Testament includes the account of creation, the history of Israel, and many prophecies about the coming Messiah. The New Testament gives God's plan for man and the fulfillment of every messianic prophecy that you read about in the Old Testament about the person of Jesus Christ, who was the Son of God and the Messiah. So where to begin? As I mentioned in the 30-day challenge above, I encourage people to begin with the Gospels. Those are the first 4 books of the New Testament, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if you're wanting to read the Bible for history, after you've read those 4 books, then you can start with the Old Testament. The first 5 books of the Old Testament are called the Pentateuch: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those were written by Moses. The 12 historical books follow the Pentateuch, and that goes from Joshua to Esther to 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, etc. Then there's the 5 wisdom books: Job through Ecclesiastes. That's Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs, also known as Song of Solomon. Then you've got 17 prophets. There's 5 major prophets and 12 minor prophets. There's so many books there for you to check out. But here you go. Genesis, as I said, is the Pentateuch. It's also known as the Law of Moses. If you're a person who must start from the beginning, that's where to go. You'll also read in Genesis about the creation that took place over 7 days. This is also the book where you'll read about Noah and the ark that we all heard about in our childhood, as well as Joseph and his coat of many colors, if that rings a bell with any of you. Genesis also covers the birth of the nation of Israel. In Genesis 3:15, God foreshadows the future revelation of himself in his son, the Messiah. It's the fulfillment that I said you'll find in the Gospels. Now, Exodus is how Moses led the people out of Egypt to Mount Sinai, where God gives us the 10 commandments that we've all heard about thou shalt not steal, kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and all those 10 commandments. That's in the book of Exodus. It's also where we celebrate the Passover, which foreshadows Jesus. And then we get, as I mentioned in the New Testament over and over, the Gospel of John. That is a great summary of the life of Jesus. It's only 25 pages long, and the entire Gospel is best summed up in chapter 3. And we've all heard John 3:16, at least you've seen that at football games where they say the sign up there, for God so loved the world, that he sent his only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. That is the whole gospel summed up in that one verse. After the Gospels, we come to Acts. Now, keeping in mind that the Israelites struggled to return to the promised land, which is what was promised throughout the Old Testament and what they finally achieved in the Old Testament, we're going to read how the faith of these same people was established with the coming of Jesus, their Messiah. Now, if you want to read the Bible for theology, then check out Romans. Romans was written by Apostle Paul. That's the answers to the big questions of the Christian life, including issues of hope, strength, sin, perseverance, and grace. And then there's the small book, which is a letter of Philippians, written to new Christians on how to lead a life that is pleasing to God. Also, there's Ephesians, another great instruction letter for Christians, and Hebrews. See how throughout the history of the nation of Israel, God has always rewarded those who persevere in this life and persevere in their belief in him. Now, Revelations, which is the last book of the entire Bible, in the New Testament, you'll find it. Now, if you're a new believer, I encourage you to only read chapters 1 and 22 at first, because it's a very heavy book about the end times, which, by the way, I believe we're living in right now. Chapters 1 and 22, Jesus talks about his eventual return. The rest of Revelations is very heavy-duty prophecies and allegories and images. It's definitely not a boring book. But then again, much of the Bible is very exciting. Now we have wisdom. Everybody's always looking for wisdom in this world, right? You're always reading this book for success and that book for success. Well, there are 5 books of wisdom in the Old Testament: Job, Proverbs, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs, also known as the Song of Solomon. The 3 purposes of those 5 biblical wisdom books are to think better, choose wisely, and strengthen your character. Proverbs, which is the main hub of the wisdom books, is the observations on life that are generally true, but not universally true. Its principles are usually true. A Proverbs a day keeps the fool away, I always say. One of the best success manuals ever written is Proverbs, and there's 31 chapters of Proverbs. So in addition to any devotions you do, I always encourage people that whatever the date is, read that chapter of Proverbs, and you will get your daily wisdom that will never grow old. Then you come to Psalms. Now, Psalms is a teaching-oriented book containing messianic prophecies. It's a model for worship and how to be honest and talk to God. The Psalms have always been used as a prayer and songbook for Christians since the day of its author, King David. If you want to learn how to pray, Psalms is a great place to go. I just recommend people read a psalm out loud as their prayer to God. And he covers all his emotions, King David. So you could just look up the topic when you have something you want to pray about and read that Psalms. The other wisdom books are Job, which is a counterbalance to Proverbs, showing that all life cannot be understood by just wise analysis. Job discusses the mystery of why we suffer. Then there's Ecclesiastes. It's another counterbalance to Proverbs, showing the meaning of life can't be found in intellectual inquiry or just pleasure seeking, but only through faith and obedience to God and his revelation. As far as great biographies, here's a summary of some of the best biographies in the Bible, and there is something for everyone. You can find Adam and Eve in Genesis 1 through 6, Noah, Genesis 6 through 9, Abraham is Genesis 11 through 25, and Jacob is in Genesis 25 through 29. And my favorite autobiography in the Bible is Joseph, found in Genesis 37 through 50. It's worth just reading his biography straight through. It is so emotional what he went through in his life. Now Moses, you'll find in Exodus through Deuteronomy. And then King David is 1 Samuel 16, 1 Kings 2:10, and all of the Psalms. Solomon, King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, is in 1 Kings and Proverbs and the Song of Songs. There's Esther, the book of Esther. Job is in the book of Job, all about suffering. And then most importantly, the life of Jesus you find from Matthew to John. Wow, that was covered a lot. I gave you a whole overview of the Bible in hopefully 20 minutes or so. I hope that that gave you some kind of excitement for you to dive in and realize this is not just a boring book. There is something for everyone. You can read it over and over your whole life and never grow tired of what is in that book. Join me next time on Living the Thrilling Life. You can click subscribe below to find out about my next episodes. You can reach me at victorya.com, Victorya. And if you want to know how to read more on the Bible, there's also some devotionals that are 365 days. Here's one called the 1 Year Chronological Bible that you can check out, that you can read a little bit every day and get through the whole Bible in 1 year. And then there's this brand new devotional, which I love, which is Hollywood, Jesus, and Me, written by Karen Covell, where every single day she chooses a Bible scripture and then gives you a prayer on how to read the Bible and gives you a challenge for your life. And she also encourages you to pray for the entertainment industry so that you can change culture through the actual cultural makers of this world. I'm Victorya Rogers. See you next time on Living the Thrilling Life.